And good evening, everyone from the state capitol. We are anticipating all four of the leaders, Republicans and Democrats from both the House and the Senate, will be coming in here shortly to announce this big breakthrough deal. They've been caucusing with their members all afternoon. The plan actually changes the definition of an assault weapon to cover more weapons, including the one used by the Sandy Hook shooter. It calls for universal registration of both handguns and long guns for the first time. It bans high-capacity ammunition magazines going forward. If you have them, you could keep them. But it would also create a first-in-the-nation required declaration that you own a high-capacity magazine. Okay, I still got no word from them. Coming in. The President of the Senate and the leaders of both parties have joined us here. Senator, you're live.
After the tragedy in Newtown last December, there were some who said the Connecticut effect would wear off, that it would wear off in Connecticut and that it would wear off across the country. What they didn't know was that Democrats and Republicans would come together and work to put together the strongest and most comprehensive bill in the United States to fight gun violence, to strengthen the security at our schools, and to provide the mental health services that are necessary. We have worked, as you know, many months now, and we have negotiated many weeks. Those negotiations have not been easy, but they have been fruitful. It has been a thoughtful process and a thorough process. And we are prepared now, as the Connecticut State Legislature, to move forward and provide this state with what it deserves, its people deserve, and most importantly, what our children deserve. So I'm proud to stand here as the leader of the Senate with my colleagues and to tell all of you that we will be taking action on a strong bill and passing that in the very near future. It's my pleasure to announce my colleague, my good friend, Speaker of the House, Brendan Sharkey.
Thank you, Senator Williams. I also want to echo Senator Williams' comments because I think many doubted whether we would be able to reach this point. And as we see what is going on in Washington right now, the fact that it's very difficult for members of both parties to accomplish much of anything, let alone an effective response to the tragedy that occurred on December 14th. I'm particularly proud to emphasize the fact that this is a truly bipartisan and strong initiative. I've said from the beginning that it's important for us to act quickly, but it's more important for us to act intelligently. It's also critical that we send the message to Washington and to the rest of this country that this is the way to get this job done, to do it in an effective, meaningful, thoughtful way, and to do it on a bipartisan basis because our children deserve no less. So I also want to commend my colleagues from both sides of the aisle for the work and the leadership that they have demonstrated in this process. With that, I'll return the mic over to Senate Minority Leader John McKinney.
Thank you, Senator Williams and Speaker Sharkey. I wake up in the morning and put this green ribbon and pin on my jacket lapel to remember those who we've lost. And what I'm proud of is that all of us, Republicans and Democrats, have understood that some issues, and this one particularly, should rise above politics. And during those long hours of public hearings and in our very long hours of working together on trying to fashion a bill, we raised and considered every issue from every angle. And that has produced a comprehensive, broad, bipartisan package that deals with mental health, it deals with school security, and it deals with gun violence. There is something in here that people on both sides may not like. At the end of the day, I think it's a package that a majority of people in Connecticut will be proud when we vote on Wednesday. Thank you. And with that, let me introduce the House Republican Leader, Larry Cafaro.
Thank you. The moment of December 14th, 2012, I think everybody in the state of Connecticut knew that we would have to do something. And the process began soon after that, where my colleagues were kind enough to reach out to Senator McKinney and myself and our respective caucuses and say, let's do this differently. Let's do this differently than they attempt to do in Washington and in even other states. Let's try as best we can to do it together. And it was not easy, as you can imagine. At the same time that we were trying to make sure that our citizenry felt safe, that we put public safety first and foremost, we were also all very cognizant of the hundreds and thousands of law-abiding citizens who are gun owners and their rights. And that was the gist or the crux of what we negotiated, trying to be fair to those gun owners and their rights as given to them by the Second Amendment and our own state constitution, but also very cognizant of government's duty to protect its citizenry. Knowing that that incident, that tragedy happened in Connecticut, it was up to Connecticut to show the way, and I'm very proud to say today that the package we are revealing to the public and the press, and the package that we hope to vote on in the next few hours has accomplished that goal. And with that, I will turn it over to the Majority Leader of the Senate, Senator Martin Looney.
Thank you, Representative Cafaro. This is indeed, I think, a great day for the Connecticut General Assembly. After months and weeks of hearings and negotiations and a process that was conscientiously engaged in by all parties, we have come up with what I believe is one of the strongest and most effective bills that we possibly could have to deal with the issue of gun violence prevention, looking at mental health issues in the future, school security in response to the tragedy in Newtown, and in general in terms of overall regulation. We will have the first in the nation statewide dangerous offender registry, an expansion of the assault weapon bill that we first passed in 1993. Stringent, a future ban on possession of large capacity magazines, stringent controls on those currently in possession, and an expanded process for certificates of eligibility and background checks for ammunition purchases as well as those for long guns. These are things that we have looked at in many ways, in many contexts over the years, and they are all brought comprehensively together in this consensus bill. So I think that it is something that as the Speaker and the President and the minority leaders of both chambers have said, this bill, I think, demonstrates what people of goodwill of different parties can do when working together. And I'd love to now introduce my colleague and my counterpart, the House Majority Leader, Joe Arasimowicz.
Thank you, Senator Looney. I think back to the first day where we announced this committee and had our organizational meeting. My line was, if we walked into this process talking in an I or a me, we would fail. That when we were at the table, all of us together, that it had to be a we. It had to be a we, the leaders of our caucuses, we, the General Assembly, and we, the people of the state of Connecticut. I think we've done that in this package. It's careful deliberation throughout, hours and hours late into the evening. But more importantly, also keeping in touch with our constituents. Representative Cafaro mentioned the responsible gun owners. We heard them. The folks that were affected by the tragedy, we heard from them. We continue to hear from them. It was all a part of the process, so we took everything into consideration. We deliberately acted. We do have a bill that we'll be acting on this week that will give us the strongest gun laws in the country. For that, we should be proud, but the process is equally important. And I think we should look to Washington and say, follow our lead as we did it here in the state of Connecticut. You can do it too. Thank you.
With that, we'll take questions.
He gave some of the highlights of this, but I wonder if you could explain in a little more detail on the ammunition magazine ban. I understand it bans them going forward. The people who have them can continue to possess them, but must register them in some way. What's the penalty if you don't do that?
If you don't do that, it could be a Class D felony, an extremely serious penalty. So we have not only a ban prospectively on the sale of high-capacity magazines, so that will be an absolute prohibition going forward, but as to the magazines that exist right now, they must be declared by January 1st, and there is a ban on possession of the high-capacity magazines that have not been declared after January 1st, 2014. So these will be some of the strongest laws on high-capacity magazines in the United States of America.
I'm sure you know there were some San Diego families who don't think that this sort of grandfathering in people who still have them is really adequate, that it still creates a loophole, they're still going to be out there. What's your response to that?
You know, I absolutely appreciate their concerns, and I've talked to some of the experts across the country who have told me that first and foremost, turning off the spigot is critical. You have got to draw the line and say from this point forward, all sales will be prohibited, and we have done that, and we've gone a step beyond most other states that have addressed this issue at all, by requiring that declaration so that these become part of the public record and then prohibiting the possession of high-capacity magazines that have not been declared in the future. Yes. Well, they will be accounted for. They will be accounted for in the same way that you would register the assault weapons, and that's what occurred after 1993. They will be part of the registration record.
What happens to the existing weapons like the one that Adam Lanza used, if that's now coming under your definition as a prohibited firearm?
Any assault weapon, the ban on assault weapons will be strengthened. We passed a law in 1993. We've refined these laws over time, but there were significant loopholes in the ban on assault rifles. So we have closed those loopholes. Now we have the strongest language in the country in terms of defining the assault rifle, and those sales will be prohibited going forward. Those weapons that are in existence now must be registered.
So it's similar to the magazine.
That's
element.
correct.
Right.
Yes.
Process question on amendments. Will the rules permit individual lawmakers to introduce amendments? Have the leadership made any agreements regarding amendments and the length of debate on amendments? Well, nothing essentially can prevent any legislator from introducing an amendment. However, I think I can speak for, I don't want to speak for all the members, but I think I can, that we are discouraging that. We've reached an agreement among ourselves on behalf of our caucuses, such that we think we have the best package possible. To the extent that amendments may be filed and brought up, they will follow that normal course. They are allowed under these circumstances, but we are discouraging them. I know I'm discouraging them within my caucus.
Sure. in the House especially, every member has a right to file an amendment, and they could do so without the permission of any leadership, and there is no agreement that we have among us that that should not take place. The caucus understands the seriousness of this matter, and I respect on their part that not everyone in my caucus, and frankly in other caucuses, agree and will be voting on this bill, and they would like to be heard, and we are going to give them that right to be heard. I have committed to my fellow leaders, and I've explained to my caucus on behalf of myself that I would not be supporting those amendments, that we are discouraging any lengthy debate on those amendments. We want our members to have an opportunity to let their feelings be heard or take a vote on an amendment if they feel that is important to them. I do not anticipate those amendments passing, and again, I do not expect the debate to be lengthy.
Larry, what's the support in your caucus for this matter?
Substantial. I would not be here if it wasn't. I'm not going to comment on that, but it's substantial.
Larry, can you tell us how much input the gun industry and the gun lobby had in getting this across the finish line?
I don't, I think we all, as I think Representative Verisimowicz indicated, I think each and every one of us took great pains to purposely meet with every interested party, whether that be gun control advocates, whether it be the families of Newtown, the Sandy Hook Promise, the Newtown Alliance, the March for Change, as well as gun manufacturers, chiefs of police, NRA, sportsmen associations, etc. So I think everybody had input, or at least was heard by all of us, and I think all of their views were taken into consideration when we put together this package.
I think I'm not going to speak for them. I've shared with them where we are, and this is some of the families, not all, who are up here today. There's nothing that will comfort them in their pain, but I think they understand that we will, upon passage, have the most comprehensive gun laws in the country, and I'm proud of that fact. I don't, we have a task force that's come to a bipartisan agreement, and I'm going to vote in favor of the agreement. What I might personally want, we're long past that. This is not my bill. This is a collective bill that we've all worked on. I think all of us individually might have given things and gotten other things in part of the negotiation process. So this is about a collective, we, Republicans and Democrats, coming together. Not, as Joe said, not a me or an I in terms of what I wanted.
Have you all agreed yet on a schedule for when this will be voted on in the House and Senate?
At this point, the expectation is that the Senate will take up the bill first, and then it will come to the House. Wednesday.
Would you anticipate doing it the same day?
Yes.
Will this be the last word on legislation session addressing gun violence, school security, or mental health provisions, or are we going to see possibly other bills throughout the week or two?
I think the expectation is that we will not be taking up further gun legislation as part of this session. To the extent that there may be some modifications, I know we want to hear from the governor's task force with regard to other issues such as mental health and school safety. So therefore, we might be taking up some additional legislation on those topics, but it is our expectation that we will not be taking up any further gun legislation this session.
Yeah, if I may comment on that as well, Paul, it is definitely our understanding that there will be no further gun-related legislation for the remainder of this session. And in addition to that, one of the parts of this bill, as you might see, is the repeal of the early release program for violent criminals. There is also an agreement that there will be no other legislation concerning the early release program for the remainder of this session as well. Correct. You know, again, I don't like to put it that way. I think we all shared so many concerns and interests. We found that a lot of this was less partisan than it was territorial and geographic. A lot of, especially in my caucus, my members represent more rural parts of the state of Connecticut, and it was certainly evident that they were very, very concerned about the rights of gun owners and protecting those rights. As a result, no gun owner will lose their gun. No gun owner will lose their magazine. They will not lose the use of said gun or magazine so long as they follow our rules and register them. Are there tighter restrictions on their use, et cetera? Absolutely. We also were able to see as part of this legislation the repeal of early release for violent criminals.
You know, if I could add on that, no one will be able to say that this bill is absolutely perfect. But no one will also be able to say that this bill fails the test when it comes to being the strongest in the country, the most comprehensive bill in the country. And yes, it took us a little longer than we expected to get to the point where we are today. But in Connecticut, we've broken the mold. We just put together Democrats and Republicans in a bipartisan process on one of the most divisive issues in the United States. And we came to agreement. Sitting in a room after our task force had conducted numerous hearings, getting more input from the public than on any other piece of legislation that's gone through the entire process, Democrats and Republicans were able to come to an agreement on a strong, comprehensive bill. That is a message that should resound in 49 other states and in Washington, D.C. And the message is, we can get it done here, and they should get it done in their respective states and nationally in Congress.
On the early release program, is the governor on board with that? The repeal of the early release program?
Yes.
The governor is. Is the governor on board with this package as you've outlined it to us?
We have discussed this with the governor. The governor has the language as it's being drafted. We continue to speak with the governor. As to the early release section, actually we worked with the governor's office on that language. And that language both addresses the concerns of the legislature, of the Democrats and the Republicans, and also takes into consideration that the Department of Corrections in many cases was already implementing some of what we're accomplishing in that bill. We have been talking with the governor throughout this process. That is our hope and expectation, but we are going to continue our conversation with the governor in that regard. I completely understand that, and I think, and there are many people who believe that as well. But we feel that the provision that we came up with it goes further than practically any other state in the country, and breaks new ground, certainly for Connecticut and as a national model. No, we respect the governor and his positions, and I'm not going to speak for the governor as to his position on the bill. I'm just telling you about the communications that we've had and we'll continue to have with him. That is our hope. It is our hope and expectation. We are going to continue our conversations with the governor.
And you said that the magazine owners and the gun owners would have it January 1 of 2014, but are some of the other things in this effective earlier?
Yes.
Is it an emergency certified bill?
Yes, it's an emergency certified bill, and the effective dates vary. In some cases, they're upon passage.
But most importantly, the ban on sale of any weapon now defined as an assault weapon or any magazine in excess of 10 is immediate upon passage. It's immediate upon passage. That's correct, but they cannot sell them or transfer them until they've registered. They can never sell them again. They can only bequeath them or sell them to a licensed federal gun dealer, but they cannot sell these weapons down the road.
Thank you. One more.
No, we're not the data that's collected, but we are expanding the circumstances under which one would have to get a background check. For example, we are going to require that for all long guns, but one of the key features of this, which is I think one of the strongest pieces that we have in this bill, is the fact that you will now be required to have a background check for the purchase of ammunition, something that, to my knowledge, I'm not sure any other state has actually done.
They don't cover transactions between family members. So if somebody wants to give their gun away to somebody, a immediate family member or a cousin, is this covered? Yes. It speaks to sales, but it doesn't speak.
It does involve transfers, interfamily transfers. The only case that was what Representative Cafaro said, which was bequests in a will or that kind of a transfer. That would be the only.
Increasing penalties for firearms trafficking and illegal possession. You're not limiting purchases at all or anything like that from what I can see.
Not limiting purchase.
There was talk about limiting handgun purchases to one a month. I don't see that in here, so I just wanted to confirm that.
That is not part of this package. All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.